Okay, Ted Cruz last night talked about freedom at some length and how freedom is going to bring our jobs back. Freedom is this magical thing, just like the free market. It's a piece of freedom, and here he is.
And if we stand together and choose freedom, our future will be brighter. Freedom will bring back jobs and raise wages. Freedom will lift people out of dependency to the dignity of work.
Right. Freedom will lift people out of dependency. In other words, when he says freedom, what he is saying to lift people out of dependency is do away with all programs that involve the government taking tax money and giving it to people or doing things for people, right? You want to lift people out of dependency? Hey, we don't need no stinking Social Security. We should privatize it and, sell it off to the banksters. We don't need no stinking Medicaid and Medicare. Let people work for a living and earn their health insurance. That's, this is this concept that has been peddled to us since the 60s, really a little before that, but it really started taking hold in the early 70s, actually, when Lewis Powell wrote his memo and all these think tanks emerged in the mid-70s that led right to the Buckley decision in 1976 that Lewis Powell wrote for the Supreme Court. And this idea that somehow freedom means freedom from, quote, government interference. And yet, without, quote, government interference, there would be no freedom. There would be no free market. There would be no marketplace, for example. If the government didn't manage our money supply, there'd be no marketplace. If the government didn't provide rules for business, what is fraud, what is not fraud, for example. Here's a court in which the rules against fraud can be enforced. Here's a rule in which contracts can be enforced. Or here's a court, where contracts can be enforced. Here's a jail for people who don't want, who don't play by the rules. I mean, it's somehow this Ayn Rand juvenile kind of high school fantasy that freedom means, well, in the case of the Ayn Rand novel, Atlas Shrugged, it was the daughter and son of a rich guy who inherited the railroad from their daddy and were very upset with the fact that the railroad's union workers were concerned about their safety. How dare they? They're just those little people, right? So here you have, a Republican Party platform that is calling for freedom in all its forms, right? You have freedom from Social Security, freedom from Medicare, freedom from any sort of health care, freedom from workplace safety rules, freedom from rules that would keep our air clean, freedom from rules that would keep our water clean so that companies can feel free to pollute all they want. Hey, a few people die of cancer. What does it matter? No big deal. Freedom from the need to fund our public education system. I mean, literally, the Republican platform says, let's end our public schools. Rich people can afford to send their kids to school. What's the problem? It's freedom, And it's like, let me share a somewhat different vision of freedom for you. Franklin Roosevelt famously said, quoting, this was from his, I think, 1932, or maybe it was his 36th speech, but, accepting the nomination. And he said, an old English judge once said, a necessitous man is not a free man. And then he went on to talk about how if you are hungry, you're not free. If you are sick and can't get health care, you're not free. If you are homeless and cannot find a place to live, you're not free. If you are out of work and can't find a job because capitalism has failed and because the government will not be the employer of last resort, you are not free. If you're the victim of predation by big corporations or billionaires, you're not free. If you live in constant fear that the billionaires are going to take you out, you're not free. So we have here, like, basically two very different visions of freedom. You have the vision of freedom that has been held literally since the founding of our republic. The whole purpose of the Constitution was to create a government that could establish rules for commerce. That's very specifically in there in the Commerce Clause. And rules for, you know, how society is basically functioning in a smooth and efficient way that protects us from government overreach, but at the same time protects us from corporate or billionaire overreach. I mean, Franklin Roosevelt said, you know, rule by organized money is as dangerous as rule by organized mob. And it's true. I mean, you know, the libertarians would refer to democracy as mob rule. That's the whole, you know, they're not, an honest libertarian will come right out and tell you they don't believe in democracy, as has happened many times on this program. The little people, you know, if they're not paying taxes, if they don't own property, if they're not, you know, and the subtext of that, of course, is if they're not wealthy and white, then they should have no say in how the government is run. That's their vision. That's the libertarian vision. And the Republican vision is very, very close to that. And then you have the Democratic vision, which is that we're going to provide opportunity to people. That if you've got $70,000 in student loan debts when you leave college, you are not free. We're going to fix that. We're going to do something about that. So that never happens again. So we don't have an entire generation of, you know, bonded servants, basically. So I just, whenever Republicans talk about freedom, I cringe. And it's like this word that they wave around, and people just think it means something good. Out of Republicans? No.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.